told I have 4 sons.
Mm-hmm.
I have a 18-year-old who, during the time that the story starts, he was 17. A 9-year-old, an 8-year-old, and then I have Mayani. My 9-year-old is 10 at this time. And so basically my teenager was teenaging. This is around December 17th, okay, 2023.
Okay.
And my teenager is teenaging. You know, he's growing into his phase. He's becoming a man. He don't want to listen. He's doing what he want to do. He's in his rebellious phase, right? So one night he decides that he's going to leave. He leaves at about 8 p.m. and he doesn't come back until 12 a.m. the next day. Okay. Now, prior to this, we had been going through the rigmarole. You know, this is not just like a one-time thing. It was back and forth. So basically, I had told him, like, you're going to be going with your family in Kansas City. You know, I'm not going to be dealing with this. You're not going to be in my house causing dystrophy. And so as a result of this, when he comes home at 12 a.m. that night, because we have been texting back and forth and he's telling me what he's not going to do, et cetera, he tried to stage his scenario. And listening to his grandmother on his father's side, she basically tells him to call the police on me. So when he comes back through the window, because, honey, I had set his suitcases and everything outside because it had got to that point, you know? And I basically told him, you know, your bags is outside. You can go on about your business. So as a result of this, he calls the police, but he came in through the window. My middle son let him in through the window. We live on the second floor of an apartment. He didn't climb to the second floor and got my little son to open the window for him. And so when he came in here, you know, I'm like, why are you in my house, et cetera? And he's like, oh, B, you know, shut up talking to me. You ain't running, you know, all of this. He puts his hands on me. You know, I'm pushing him out the door. He puts his hands on me, but he's like, I'm calling the police. You know what I'm saying? But he had already called the police before he got there. So when we had our altercation, he went ahead and I shut the door and locked him out. 5 minutes later, here comes the police, right? I don't answer the door. Okay. I have the right to remain silent. What are you here for? I don't want to do no business with y'all. I didn't call y'all. Talk to the person who called y'all, right? He still don't get in, bottom line, right? And so basically the next day, which is about December 18th, around that time, it's a CPS agent at my door. So I look out the window.
And what city are you located in at the time?
I'm in Houston, Texas, Clear Lake, Houston, Texas area. Okay.
Okay. He's going back to oldest son is going back to Kansas City.
Yes, ma'am. He's going somewhere because he can't be up in my house. You're 17 years old, you a grown man. You're a grown man. And so that was my sentiment. That was my sentiment with CPS was at the door. I'm like, you at my door about a 17-year-old?
Right.
If he did something out there with the law, y'all wouldn't be knocking on my door trying to get no commentary for me. Y'all gonna do whatever y'all want to do with that grown man. You feel what?
Right.
So I didn't answer the door because you have no merit to be here because in the state of Texas, endangerment or abandonment consists of a 15-year-old. This boy's 17. Okay. So I don't answer the door. They leave a card. Okay, whatever. I'm not paying you no attention because we don't have nothing to talk about.
Right.
And so 2 days later, here come Philip Leach again, knocking at my door. So I'm like, okay, what are you here for? I don't answer the door again. So after this, I ends up me and my sons, we leave it and we go somewhere and we come back. This is about 3 days later. We leave and then we come back and Philip Leach is sitting in my parking lot, stalking my apartment. Right. So from there, I ended up contacting the commissioner of Texas DFPS. Her name is Stephanie Muth, M-U-T-H, right?
Okay.
And because I am, I consider what people call themselves to be a sovereign. Okay. Sovereignty is your birthright. That's how we were born before they put us in any of these contracts, before they did any of this. Okay. Right. I've done all the paperwork. My children are in trust. I've did all of that. I teach this. Okay. I have a large following on TikTok. So I contact Stephanie Muth. I send her an affidavit telling her I'm not doing business with your fictitious privatized human trafficking corporation. Get your agents and tell them to stop coming to my private residence. They trespassing on my property. If you do not, you will be held criminally and civilly liable. Right? So I send this to her. And the next day, not the next day, but like around about December, probably 21st or so, or maybe December 20, 25th or something. Not the 25th because that's Christmas, but all of this is streaming around December. After I send them and give them notice, here comes a CPS supervisor investigator by the name of Jennifer Dominguez at my door. I know these names because they put the card. We never had any interaction. But when Jennifer Dominguez comes to my door, my window was open. So we looking at each other. She sees me and I see her. I'm not talking to y'all. We don't have nothing to talk about. What are y'all here for? So in the midst of this, me and my boys end up going to Kansas City for vacation. And this is when Mayani gets sick. Okay. And so in the mix of this, we ended up coming back to Texas. So when Mayani got sick, what happened was Mayani has trisomy 21, which is basically a variation of Down syndrome. Okay. And so, he's healthy. He's a healthy boy. But nonetheless, he ended up getting sick at this time, so he's having trouble breathing because he's really rambunctious. He's really energetic and he's not being himself. So we're at the Airbnb and I contact the ambulance. Okay. And when the ambulance come, they do a search, they check him and they're like, oh, well, we think he's okay, but you can take him to the emergency room. I'm not okay with what y'all telling me. So off to the emergency room we go. So we go to the emergency room in Overland Park, Kansas. And so they're basically like, oh, we need to suction him out. And they just have us sitting there for hours. And I'm just like, my son cannot breathe. I mean, you could tell that he's struggling because it's really tight. He's really compressed. He's really struggling, Right. And I'm like, y'all don't see this? Like, what's the problem? So I end up leaving I'm like, come on, boys, because I got my little ones with me as well. So I'm like, come on, we're about to go to Texas. We're going to Texas where I can get, I'm going to his primary care physician. They're not taking this serious, so we drive 12 hours back to Houston, Texas. And, when you got kids with you, that is about a 16 hours, 12 hours. But, I'm having to stop in between, change diapers, do all of this. But Mayani is not himself. And also during this time, my mom was watching him and he was having consistent diarrhea. She's like, he's sick. Let's get him to the doctor. He's having a lot of different.
And how old is the other two boys?
They're right now 10 and 8, but they were 9 and 8 at the time.
Oh yeah, bathroom breaks constantly.
I'm hungry breaks. I'm fighting breaks. Come on, let me pull over. Y'all need to do this, But nonetheless, though, girl, we get back. I assume the same day that I get back to the state of Texas, Houston, Texas, on January 5th. I go to his primary care physician who is at UT Physicians in Clear Lake. And they're like, oh, no, we need to get him. He's having respiratory issues. Let's get him to the emergency room. So I take him to the UTMB emergency room in Clear Lake, which is right around the corner. So my boys, I leave them at the house. So I could just take him, y'all go in there and go to sleep. I go in the house. I mean, I take him. So I take him to UTMB. So UTMB declares, okay, he's having some respiratory issues. We see excessive fluid on his chest. We need to get the kangaroo care here. We want to get him sent to Texas Children. I'm like, okay, fine. So they got him on oxygen, so while they're transporting him to the kangaroo care, I go back around the corner because everything is within a radius. It's not far. It's only like 3 miles away. So I go back to pick my boys up. Like, come on, we're going to have to go to the hospital. The minute I arrived to Texas Children's Hospital, which is like no more than an hour and a half later, they've administered Mayani fentanyl. They got him hooked up to these machines. Yeah, they have him hooked up.
Oh, my God.
Yes, they have him hooked up to the machines. They have him they're administering him medication for the heart, which is called Milrinone. He's in the ICU cardiac unit at Texas Children's Hospital. And, so of course they're coming in, they're bringing me doom and gloom. Me, I'm a person, I say what you receive from them people is what will manifest in your life. So they're coming in, they're telling me, oh, your son has congestive heart failure. This is severe. His heart is at 11%. And I'm like, okay, my son is healed and I'm not going to receive that because he's going to overcome this. And I have to be in the right state of mind as a mother to ensure that I'm watching what y'all do, that I'm not in a vulnerable state, and that I'm aware of what's happening in my surroundings, And so basically, they have a list of medications. It's like they're just administering medications at first. You know what I'm saying? I don't even know what they're giving them. So I'm like, hey, I need a list of medications. What's going on? What are the procedures? What is happening here? And so basically, they have him on like almost 14 different medications. I mean, it's a medication for everything. It's just all kind of different supplements, just a lot of different stuff. And so about 3 days later, I leave and I come back. I'm coming back to visit because I'm there every day. I'm like on a schedule. I didn't miss one day being with my auntie. I would get there and I would, we would be there all day. I would put him to bed, and when he woke back up, we would be there again. It was my duty to ensure that he was never left alone. And so basically, one day I come into the hospital and I hear a baby screaming, and I'm like, "Whose baby is this?" And I walk in the room, and this nurse has my auntie pinned down on his stomach, and she's basically he's naked. He don't have on nothing but a diaper, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm just trying to draw blood." I'm like, "What do you mean you trying to draw blood?" So I touch my auntie. He's freezing cold. I look at the thermostat. She's like, "Oh, I just gave him a bath because his sheets is wet. His blankets, because I had brought his own blankets and everything in, and his blankets are wet." And I'm like, "Why is his blankets wet?" "Oh, he peed on them." But then come to find out she gave him a bath on them. But nonetheless, though, she ended up basically, his IV was ripped out of his arm. Like he had an IV in his hand, and it was ripped out, and he was just crying and screaming. And I'm like, "Why are you, what are you doing?" So I filed a complaint with the nurse manager, the manager on the floor. They all tried to play it down. And then what the nurse did was retaliated against me, because everything I'm doing, I'm recording. I'm making sure I'm keeping document. I'm posting it on my TikTok. Everything that's happening, I'm posting it.